Welcome to Every Step Podcast. I'm Krystyna Weston.
And I'm Judith Beck.
Every Step is the podcast where career and life meet.
With a new guest every episode, we explore the gutsy issues affecting everyone in the workplace.
Well, Judith, I cannot believe we've come to the end of season 1. What a whirlwind year filled with some amazing conversations.
I can't believe it either. And every single week, how lucky have we been to be able to speak to all these amazing people every single week since we started season 1. You know, I've learned so much. I know we've all had conversations, and I hope our audiences learned a lot. But speaking to these wonderful people from all over the world, it's just been such a privilege. I mean, God, let's just talk about what we think.
There've been
what we've learned.
So many conversations, and yet what's really interesting is that there has been a common theme or a few common themes this year. And, you know, there was a theme of remote work, and that seemed to be quite big this year, with people getting their heads around how do you manage remote. You know, we had Darren Murph and we had Liam Martin, two phenomenal experts from the US, talking to the issues around this. And I mean, they're known experts in the globe around these sorts of issues. And yeah, that seemed to be one of the big issues of people getting their head around. How do we do it? How do we create teams? How do we create trust? How do we make teams productive? So I think that was one of those little underlying things that kept cropping up in a number of our conversations.
Exactly right. And I'm glad you said that, because if we look at the stats, and what have I always say? Numbers don't lie.
Mm-hmm.
But although every single one of our speakers, and I'm looking at this big sheet that I have here with all the stats on it, all of our speakers were popular. And, we were on YouTube and all the different streaming channels, but there were some people who really, really stood out from the point of view, topic wise. It was probably very topical at the time. People like you said, Darren Murph, about working remotely. I mean, who wasn't interested in that? That's still a very, high sought after topic. People still don't know if they should go back in the office or should they work at home. And then also, the world is pretty screwed up right now, and it's been screwed up the last year. And so mental health and things like that. Chelsea Pottinger, where we talked about micro breaks and taking care of ourselves, very popular podcast. And Dr. Simone.
Dr. Simone was brilliant. Actually, we had a lot of doctors this year.
We had a lot of doctors.
Did we have on? And only one was a medico. I think only Dr. Simone Scavell was an actual medical doctor. But I think we've got like 6 or 7 doctors this year.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of them. But hers was about work health. And, that's really important. And that was a very popular one. And then we had the popularity of the CEOs. We had a lot of ex-CEOs and current CEOs and people running businesses. So Joseph and David, they were very popular. And Brian Hartzer was very popular because you know what? People want to hear how people did it, who have walked the walk, talked the talk, built the business. As well as, putting their own money into it at times. There was a lot of people like that. And one of my favorites was Lisa Barron. I love that. It was like from 17 to success, 40 years.
Phenomenal.
And what did we talk about in that episode? Because all of us have gone through it. Resilience
and entrepreneurship. And I think the theme of hard work has really come through. There's no such thing as a silver bullet. Even Joseph Healy and David Hornery in their Black Belt stories really open about some of the really big challenges when they thought they had a deal and the deal fell over. With Lisa Barron, phenomenal in terms of that whole longevity, like you said, resilience. Even Denise Garth was talking about hard work. If you want to get ahead, it takes effort. and it takes application and it takes resilience. So yeah,
exactly.
that's been another common theme. Exactly.
Absolutely, a huge. And the other thing is that that stood out as well in a lot of the podcasts was the power of networking and your contacts. That came out very strongly.
Margaret Zeta, fabulous.
In Adrian's episode and Mark's episode and in Gary's episode. Now, Gary, wow, there's a perfect example. Gary referred us Denise. And then, we would have never been able to, know Denise and get her on without that connection of Gary and having someone like her, one of the top 10 people in fintech in the world. So that was fantastic. And that
a trusted referral. I think that's really key when you get a trusted referral from somebody that you rate and then they refer you to somebody else. You don't need to vet them because they've already been vetted. And Denise was phenomenal. I really loved the podcast.
Absolutely. So that power of networking really came out. You also customer service and going over and above for your clients. We learned a lot from Will Gadara. Unreasonable hospitality, which, at the end of the day, you think it would just be second nature that that's what you have to do if you want to keep a customer or get a new customer, is put in extra effort. But that stuff isn't that common these days. So the companies that are doing unreasonable hospitality and actually giving great customer service are going to be ahead. And he says it beautifully with a lot of the stories that he tells us.
There's another theme: stories. So Will was such a brilliant storyteller, and Gabriel Dolan, fantastic session about how to bring ideas and businesses and concepts to life by storytelling. And I think Will was brilliant in that he told a phenomenal story, and Gabrielle was fantastic because she taught us how to tell those stories.
And you know why all the people that we had on as guests were great storytellers? Because they've had experience, they've lived it, they've felt it. They've they've been in the trenches and they've gotten out and successful on the other side and put in the hard work, which brings me to Mello about burnout. That was a great episode about burnout, because the reality is if you burn yourself out, you won't be as effective. So a lot of the episodes did interlink a little bit.
And Vanessa's interlinked with Mello's a little bit too. Vanessa Bennett talked about how to manage productivity, how to be on top of your game without having burnout. So a different aspect of the conversation we had with Mello.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, there's so many messages. And also, let's not forget Marina Burbat about self-doubt and passion, and that if you really want to start something or write that book or whatever it is that you're passionate about, stop having that self-doubt and just do it. And surround yourself with positive people as well. So I loved what she spoke about as well. And great conversation with Deborah from Swellcast, because that was about what's the temperature now. We must get her on next season as well, because the temperature out there right now, as we know, is not very good. And a lot of people are going through a lot of issues and a lot of fear and stress. And it's really important for employers to reach out to their employees and ask them if they're okay, because it may not be evident. And when people are working from home, you may not know what's going on.
Oh, exactly. I mean, we're dealing with some pretty big global kind of existential issues, and that can be very triggering for people. And it seems almost trivial to be doing some of our daily routines or having certain conversations or posting certain things on LinkedIn. You and I were talking about this the other day, Judith, is so much of what we do in our day-to-day seems so trivial compared to what's going on at a global scale right now, and the pain and suffering that so many people are going through.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, after the terrorists on October 7th happened, I felt sick to my stomach, and and continued that way and still I have. But there was no way I was going to go on and start posting, 5 tips to, do this, or 6 tips. It just didn't seemed
tone deaf, didn't it?
I thought, seriously, I cannot, I just can't do that right now. And, I've got, I'm, everybody's affected by it. Everybody's affected. And there's, you just kind of go, seriously, have we not learned anything in the world? And where are the leaders and what's happening? And we won't go into that now, because I think it's a whole episode. It's a whole episode for next year to be talking about, the effect of world events that happen, that we do take world events and things that happen into the workplace, and we take them at home. We're only human. And how are we going to have those conversations? And that's why I love Swellcast, Deborah's platform, because people can go on there and talk about how they're feeling, and other people can help them. And it's a great place to be able to have that discussion without judgment. And so, I just think that we've just covered so many topics, but there's still a lot more. And there's also more that we can do with some of the ones that we've discussed, because you can only do so much in 20 to 30 minutes, taking it to that next level. And, I'm really excited about next year, because we've already are starting to get a good lineup and taking it to a different stage as far as, broadening out as far as industry goes, so that we're speaking to leaders in lots of different industries, looking at panel participation and audience participation. And that's why we're looking for a sponsor as well.
Well, I think that's a great segue. I think, Judith, I think it's worthwhile for our listeners, because they listen to us, and we sit here and we have our little words of wisdom, and we bring in our guests with words of wisdom, but we're also on a journey, right? This podcasting journey has been new for us. So I think it would be valuable for us to share a little bit of our own self-reflection around, well, what's worked for us? Has it turned out like we thought it would? So I think there's a really interesting little journey for us to unpack over the last 12 months. Are you up for a conversation about that?
Yeah, I think, obviously we went into this with, okay, this is a conversation. We're going to go in there and we're going to discuss the latest issues honestly, openly, because both of us, we've had our years of experience, so we're not worried about being canceled or what people say. And we felt that there was a lot of inaccuracies being discussed out there about the workplace and how to be successful. And so we wanted to, one, discuss that ourselves openly and honestly, but also have guests on who were prepared to say it like it is, and not worry that it was going to be offensive or an issue. And I think probably doing the whole podcast thing, I mean, it's so easy to do, really, in a way.
Oh, hello. So easy. Come on.
I know it's easy in a way compared to because of Zoom and the technology, it's a lot easier compared to what would have been in the years. But it is hard work, because we had to get 39 guests, and then with the guests, you've got to approach them. There's information you have to send them. There's a lot of administration work there. And then you have to
framing the topics,
doing your homework on the people who are going to come on. Then you have to work on your social media and what you're going to put out there. So we did a lot of testing on that, and that was great that we had Karen
and Carrie Ann. That was,
Karen. We should have had them on at the beginning.
Yeah,
because that was all
had
about
those skills then.
Because that was all about what works on LinkedIn and what doesn't, because what do the algorithms do and those types of things. And that's all trial and error, like anything. You know, you got to trial and error. And
absolutely. And not be afraid to fail. Like you and I had never been podcasters, right? So this is our first, this is both yours and mine. We've done a lot of public speaking in our time. So, you know, maybe that helped us, but we'd never podcast. So we actually put ourselves out there. We had a go. And you know what? I think we did all right.
We did okay. Look, the numbers don't lie.
That's exactly.
So, but the thing is that, you know, I'm sure if we go back and look at our first couples, you know, for anyone listening, our first couple, we were interrupting each other all the time, and we we still do it a bit.
We're passionate. Come on.
Exactly. So if you're listening to it, and you know, and we're interrupting, or we're not. That's how we normally talk. But in formal conversation, we'll probably do it even more. And you know, if we're not being recorded, right? Because we are very passionate about it. And we know that the sound quality is not always perfect. Sometimes the internet would go down, and then we'd have to, you know, we'd be talking to somebody overseas, and then the sound quality might not be perfect. And then and you know what? We just went with it. We just went, okay, so what? It's not the end of the world.
We had interruptions. We had dog interruptions, thanks to my pooches. We had husband, partner, grandparent interruptions. We had an air conditioning repair person with one of our guests happen to turn up.
Yes, exactly right. Exactly. And then we accidentally, let's not forget, we accidentally published one of the episodes that wasn't edited at the end. So it was Krystyna. It's not there anymore, so don't bother going looking for it. But basically, it was Krystyna and I yakking on after we stopped, and about nothing. It was kind of like a Seinfeld episode. We were just talking really about nothing, but it's not stuff that you want to publish.
No. And that made us both sick in the stomach. You know, when you make those mistakes, you don't realize you think you've uploaded something, but you've uploaded the wrong file, and all of a sudden the whole world can hear it. Well, fortunately, the whole world didn't. Fortunately, a very good girlfriend who's been tuning in, thank you, Sarah, thank you, called me up and said, now, you don't need to be alarmed, but there's something that you probably didn't intend to publish. Now, you haven't said anything bad. In fact, it was a really interesting insight to how you plan around podcasts, but you may want to check. And I think Judith and I were both sick to the stomach because
we're
both perfectionists. No kidding, folks. So for us to have done something like that was we were sick for days, I think, weren't we, Judith? Even though nobody really heard it.
No, and it wasn't. We weren't talking about anybody or doing anything like that. And but
lesson to newcomers, lesson to learners. What is it? Measure once, measure twice, cut once.
Yes, that is actually so true. And also, I think, you know, that we were sick about it, but we learned, again, we'll never do that again. But also, we weren't so sick about it that we lost sleep over it, because
you might not have, but anyway.
Well, it was kind of like, but it kind of goes to our thing, like, okay, we're here to have fun, we're here to provide information, and we're here to pass on experience, and it's not a
life and death.
It's not a Channel 7, 9, or 10 polished production where you've got things and we're in our home offices, and the sound quality is not going to always be good.
What podcast is like schmicko? I think actually, and any of you who are listening, I'd love to hear your comments. Do you want our next season to be more polished or more organic? Because my sense is people want to hear the real story. They want to hear the warts and all. They want to hear the painful stuff and the shitty stuff and the mess up stuff, not just that, oh, everything's perfect and everything's polished. But hey, I could be wrong.
You know what? I've always said that, if you look at ones like, like Megyn Kelly, for example, on a YouTube, and, she's got millions and millions of followers. And, she's got a screen in the back of her. The sound quality is good, so obviously that's good. But and then she has her guests kind of on screen like we do, and sure, it's a step up, for sure. But it's not that big a deal. Like, it's not, you wouldn't go, there's not bells and whistles and
step up. We need a sponsor. So I'm coming back to your initial point. So any of you folk out there who'd like to hear more, if you think your organization would be a good match for us, we'd love to continue to do this and share the wisdom. And we've had some phenomenal guests, but we would dearly love a sponsor. So
yeah, exactly. And we only want one sponsor. We don't want to have 5 sponsors where we're interrupting the podcast every 5 minutes for a commercial. We don't want that at all. No, we want one sponsor that we can partner with, that we can share ideas, and that it's a benefit for both the audience and for everyone, basically. So, give us, direct message us on LinkedIn if you're interested. But I think, just getting back to some of the things that, we learned on this. I think our guest had fun too. I think
they did.
Yeah.
I think they loved, because so a window into how we run our podcasts. We have a theme, and we have some base areas that we want to explore, but we don't have interviews. So when we go, it's record time, we just freeform it, right? So we just leverage our experience and we just let the conversation go where it goes. And we pick up threads as they come up, and we grasp them and talk about them and explore them. So there is no script. So I think that's been, the guests have really enjoyed that it was a conversation, that they didn't have to come in and have that pat up, that they didn't need their full elevator pitch. They could just tell their stories and have a chat. And I think that's been really enjoyable for all of us.
Absolutely. And it's funny because their expectations a lot of times was, what's the structure? What do you want me to say? When I went back, I said, I don't know, this is the topic that we're going to talk about, but it might go down the track of 5 other topics. So don't worry about it. There's nothing to prepare. And you just need to show up, and we're going to have a conversation, like if it's 3 friends talking about something that they just heard about and what they feel about that. And I'm not good at scripts. I mean, anybody who knows me in the past, as far as, when I've had, like, I don't, if you give me something to read and you expect me to relay it exactly how, I will not get it right. But if you say, go in and talk about this topic, I'll go blah, 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 blah. but the word for word, I will not get it right.
And we had fun, right? We're laughing now. We had fun this year.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I mean, speaking to interesting people, why wouldn't it be fun at the end of the day? It was, everybody was, and we didn't always agree. So, a lot of times when we had conversations, from a principal point of view, we didn't always agree on different ways of doing things, or we might have.
You and I didn't agree on things.
I know, we still don't, but we have a conversation about it. One of the good ones I liked too was Dr. Kirsty, Dear Digital, because then that was a popular one too, because it hones in on if you are controlling tech, or is tech controlling you. And every time I think I've been watching too much tech or be on my tech, I think of that. And I think about, okay, this is not a good use of my time, or it's a waste of my time. And it kind of goes back to where we are right now and all this world stuff. In the beginning, I was watching the news every minute, and then looking on it, and I was really losing sleep, basically. And so now both my husband and I are like, we'll watch the news in the morning, and we'll watch one roll. In other words, just that first breaking news and that session, not having the TV on and listening to it over and over again, because you can't do anything about it really.
Exactly.
And it will do your head in. So you have to control basically what you can control.
And I think Karen Hollenbach talked a little bit about that. She talked about being a digital minimalist. And I think there are some also little themes from Dr. Beck around controlling technology as well. So I think that's also been a bit of a common theme this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we discussed a little earlier about Denise breaking barriers, breaking those real ones or perceived ones. That's so important because people are constantly putting barriers up in front of them that aren't there. And that's not just work. That's at home as well. They talk themselves out of doing something. Oh, I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't. And I don't know.
Marina Babot talked about that too. Like we talk ourselves out of following our passions.
Exactly. But also, and I don't know if it was in Denise's or Marina, but it was in a few of them where don't have those people around you that enforce that I can't do it. You want the people who say, well, why can't you do it? If not you, then who? You want your cheerleaders, you want good people around you who are encouraging you, because if you surround yourself with negative people, it will rub off. It will rub off, and really, again, you kind of just look around the world, how people just pick up on something and they run with it without looking at the facts or everything else behind it, and they get in a group. I mean, we're seeing them in the colleges and the high schools and things like that around these days, and you think, oh my God, they're surrounding themselves with people who are giving them that agenda. Yeah. And you really need to be an individual, think for yourself, but surround yourself with people who are positive. Nothing's worse than being around people who are negative.
Exactly. They bring you down. They'll bring you down,
exactly. And then let's not forget Elizabeth on relationships at work.
Oh, yes.
A very popular one because
love at work.
Love at work. So we're coming up to that time.
A silly season, so you behave, folks. It's not worth it.
It's not worth it. And we're going to reinforce that. Now we're going to, on December 11th at 12 o'clock, we are going to pre-record a bonus episode about the year in review and where we think the year going forward is going to go. And we'd like to invite up to 25 people. So there's a limit of 25 people. We'd like to invite up to 25 people to join us as audience members, but also have the opportunity to talk and ask questions and contribute. So if you're interested in being in the audience, direct message us on LinkedIn saying that you're interested and your email, and we'll send you out a Zoom invite, but it is limited to 25. We could have more. I mean, you can have hundreds of people on Zoom, but we want to limit the number so it's more, so people have an opportunity to ask questions and make comment. So we think that will be a good way to
wrap up the year.
Because you know what? There's going to be another year coming. And, we go through history, we go through ups and downs. We always have, and we always come out the other end. But how we do that depends on us individually.
That's so true. And how we cope with the troughs. And I suspect we're up for a bit of a trough for all of us. So it's about how we manage that, how we look after ourselves, how we look after those around us, how we respond to the conflict, because there is an enormous amount of conflict at so many different levels and it triggers so many people. Let's try and be compassionate during this time for everybody involved and not turn it into a micro conflict in our workplaces and in our personal lives.
Absolutely. And these day and age, why there should be discrimination or people not liking other people or having views, like I just don't get that whole thing. And I told you, I'm writing that book about my mother, 100 Years of Movie. And so that's what I'm going to be doing from now on until our next season, finishing that. But I'm interviewing her every week. We've got a set date, and I interview her, and I'm going through she turns 100 April 28th. So I'm doing all that. Phenomenal. And I asked her about what's going on. And because she was in high school right before World War II. And so she was saying that she's amazing because, can I tell you, she can remember every president and what they stood for and everything right from the beginning, or who the president was, the whole 9 yards. But she was fortunate enough to go to a high school, a technical high school. It's called Tech High School. And they were very, probably one of the most forward type high schools, because there was every nationality. And I was fortunate to go. I didn't go to her high school. I went to another one, but I was inner city high schools tended to be like that. And she was saying she just couldn't, what went on during those times, and to see a repeat or things like that starting to happen again is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Is heartbreaking. And, speak to your grandparents, speak to your parents, ask them the questions, and you will find history starts to repeat itself if we let it. And I think that, and same thing in work environment. Why do we get from A to B? Hard work, customer service, relationships with people,
communication, listening to people, consulting people.
It's no different. No, it's no different in any generation. There's other things around the fringe that might be different.
Why is it that we seem to forget?
I know. Exactly. So, I mean, in next season, we're really going to deep dive into some of those really, really topical things that are happening, and getting people on even more from a mix of different industries, but also, asking some of the audience to participate and ask those questions, because it's if ever a time where people need to listen to each other, it's now. It's now, and not with blinkers on. And you know what, I don't know if we covered this with Dr. Kirsty or not, but when you look up, and I'll just very basic, when you Google a black handbag, let's just say black handbag on your Facebook, and you're looking at, I want a black handbag or whatever, all of a sudden then you continually get ads for black handbags.
That's how the cookies and the algorithms work.
Exactly. Now imagine you're a high school student and you're looking up one thing.
You'll get fed that. It reinforced. That's how it works, right?
Exactly. So then all of a sudden they're looking at a topic, and they're getting all the things that support that search, that topic, but they're not getting the other view. So therefore, they're starting to go down a tunnel of thinking one way. And I think there's an issue right now with Meta that's happening in America about what they're doing. But this is where having different views is really important, and people start listening to themselves. So we're going to really kind of focus on that as well, and maybe even having opposing views on an episode on a particular topic, like a debate, really to shake it up a little bit, because communication is our superpower, isn't it?
It should be.
It should be. So I think, I just, looking at this list of people that we have spoken to, I just, like, every single episode, there's a message there. And, we didn't get to mention every single person, but, Ellie and Dr. Louise Mailer on body language. That's an important thing, to be able to read people and to be able to understand
truth-telling and
signs. Yeah. And again, that's important to really sort of be aware of, because a lot of times you're not in front of people. And when you're on a Zoom thing, how do you know someone's mad or not?
Oh, I think you can tell.
It's interesting. But
you've got to be looking for it, right?
We're only looking halfway, and there's other signs they were saying that that you can gauge on whether or not somebody is interested, or they could be halfway up but be writing something else or typing. Yeah. So I mean, really, we're just so fortunate to have been able to speak to all these people, and so I really want to thank all the guests for taking their time and being part of this, because we just loved having you. And maybe a season 2, we might get a few more of our guests back on for a follow-up. That would be fun as well. But Krystyna, anything else you want to add?
No, I think we've had a great time. We've learned a lot, and I think that's what happens. You learn from putting yourself out there and trying something new and different. You learn something, and you learn what works, and you learn what doesn't, and it builds skills for other things. So I know I'm using some skills now that I've learned during the course of the year. I'm using it in my business, and put yourself out there, folks.
Yeah,
try something different. Try something
different. There's two that I didn't mention that I have jotted down on my notes here that I do want to mention, because it resonated with me, especially at this stage in my life, was Dr. Wesley McClendon about having purpose. And we did have that theme in a few other ones as well, but having a purpose, really, really important. And Andrew Griffiths, who's best-selling author of
Hustle.
Gotta have the hustle, people. It won't come to you. You got to go out there, and that's whether you're writing a book or just starting a business. You've got to be the one who does the hustle. You can't expect people to do it for it. And that's one thing too, I would actually say to business owners, because sometimes business owners think, well, I don't need to do that anymore. I've got people to do that. No, you need to do it all the time. You need to be the biggest hustler of everyone and set the example. And because people do want to deal with the owners or the founders or the CEOs, and you got to be out there. You got to you're always a business person. You're always in business development, regardless of what level you are within an organization. That's your role: business development, bringing business in the door, making the customer happy, from receptionist to CEO. And so those themes did resonate a lot within our podcast. So yeah, great time. I can't wait till next year. And like I said, we've already have got a good list going and already have episodes booked in. So can't wait. And if you're interested in being in our audience on December 11th at 12 o'clock, please direct message us. We'd love to have you. And it's going to be a fun episode, because we're really going to talk about the past and the future. So thank you so much for everyone. And thank you, Krystyna, for
Thanks, Judith. Thanks, everyone. And thanks to all our wonderful, wonderful guests.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. For more information about Every Step and our guests, head to everysteppodcast.com. To be notified of new podcasts, please subscribe via your favorite listening platform. And of course, follow us on social media and direct message us to share your ideas about guests or topics.